Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Mike, Regala Photography, where we talk about everything photography. Today I'm going to take you through what I do in post with editing my photos, what plugins I use, the applications I use, and all the steps I do. So let's get started. Okay, so let's get started here. Um, Here's a photo I took, I believe it was in October 2020. Fall colors, local park, not too far from here. And the reason I took, or I'm choosing this. The reason I'm choosing this photo is because a couple reasons. Number one, here in the Northeast, it's almost autumn, so colors are going to be changing. So I wanted to kind of get in the mood for you know, editing autumn colors. And also I chose it because I shot this a while ago and I've kind of changed my workflow a little bit. Added a plugin or two. So I wanted to kind of try it out. Excuse me. With the new plugin or different plugins, just to kind of see how the photo might come out. So we'll just give it a shot. So let's go over here to the develop module. You can see I shot this photo at ISO 100, 153 millimeter at f6.3. Now I know the area that I shot this in, it's not much sunlight gets in there, so that's why I had to take my aperture down to 6.3. I could have just bumped the ISO, which is probably what I should have done. But I think at the time I was just in a hurry to kind of get out of this spot. I was already in this spot for a while, so I wanted to, you know, kind of get a couple extra shots in and then kind of move on. So anyway, usually what I do, especially with landscape photos, I like to go into my profile, change that, check it out maybe with landscape, kind of see how that looks. It definitely popped the reds out a little bit. I'm not too worried about the temperature. I could bring the temperature down a little bit. But yeah, landscape I think would be better. The other option would be vivid. And oh, actually, vivid's not too bad either. I like the vivid pop there. So we're going to go with vivid this time. So uh, white balance or temperature, I should say. Going to bring that down a little bit cooler, right about there. That looks good. You see the trees, the bark on the trees, they pop a little bit more. Kind of brings out the white in those trees. So we'll do that. Green. Let's see if we want to. No, we don't want to add any green. So we're kind of gonna keep that as shot. Exposure. Bring the exposure up a little bit. Maybe around 0.330. Oh, too much. We'll go back down to 0.3. Contrast, usually I kind of hold off on the contrast. Highlights, I'm going to bring the highlights down, see what that looks like. We'll bring them up a little bit. I think I'm going to bring them up this time. Usually I go down with highlights, but because I started off with such a dark photo, I'm going to bring the highlights up a little bit. Shadows, we're going to go back down with the shadows a little bit, kind of get that help with the contrast. You see with contrast, when you use the actual contrast slider, sometimes it tends to oversaturate. And in a photo like this, where there's like a ton of color, I really don't want to oversaturate any particular color. So I like to do the highlights and shadows before I would go to contrast. I will try contrast, see if that looks, see that kind of makes it a little too dark or too light. So we'll keep that as is. Whites, I usually always tend to brighten the whites a little bit and then bring the darks or the blacks down a hair or two, again, just to add to that contrast. Clarity. I tend to always add a little bit of clarity here. However, I don't go too far because I'm going to be using Luminar Neo as a plugin, and it has a slider called Structure. And I kind of like the way that slider or that plugin actually works with the sharpness and the definition of the photo. So we're going to do a little bit here. We don't need any dehaze. How about if we bring up the vibrance a little bit here? A little bit. We'll leave the saturation as is. And I'm going to bring the temperature down a little bit more. A little bit. Right about there. Oh, we'll go 49 Kelvin, 4900 Kelvin. Okay. All right. Now, I also forgot to mention that down here, lens corrections, these are automatically checked. So every photo that comes into Lightroom for me, I had that set as a preset. So whenever my photos are imported, those are all automatic. You can see it's a Canon, RF lenses, and I already got the profile and everything for my 200 or 70 to 200 RF lens, 2.8. So there's that right there. And then I like to go and do a little bit of sharpening. And again, like I said earlier, I will be going into Luminar Neo as a plugin, and the structure will sharpen it a little bit. However, I'm also going to be doing a couple things in Neo that are going to lessen the sharpening as well. But usually what I like to do, especially with landscape, bring the radius all the way down, bring the definition all the way up. Right here, I'll probably end up going about 87 to 90. And then I'm going to do the masking. So what I'll do is I will hold down the Option key, click masking, and how come it's not working here? There it goes. Must not have been hitting it right. There. So when you hold down the Option key and then you hit the masking, you can kind of see what you're sharpening. And so this way, so I don't over sharpen. I mean, I really don't want to sharpen too much of what's in the water. So mostly what I want to do is sharpen the actual forest. So I'm actually going to bring that masking almost all the way to 100. It's right at 96. So that's perfect right there. Actually, let me go back down to 96. All right. So, and then I usually don't touch any of the noise reduction or anything here, especially with this photo. This photo, you probably won't see any noise at all. So with all the, everything that's in there, all the chaos, if you will. Let me see. Colors. Let's see. Let's see if we can make the reds pop a little bit. So let's hit the saturation on the reds. Where's the red? Here it is. So we're going to make those reds pop a little bit. The yellow. Let me see. Yellow I want to brighten. So let's go to the lumens. Yep, and get those yellows popping out there a little bit more. The reds actually I want to brighten a little bit too. Not too much though. The orange, I actually want to see about darkening the orange. Let me see how that looks. There we go. And I do want to add a little more orange into the photo. I don't want to go too much because I have that. The red and the yellow together are kind of giving like an orange tint to the picture. So actually, if I drop the orange down a little bit, what would happen here? See, if I drop the orange down, you do definitely get a lot more definition with the yellow and the red. So what I will do is I think I'm going to pop up the yellows a little bit, pop up the reds a little bit, and then I'm going to bring the orange down a little bit, but I'm going to darken the orange up. Not too much, just a little bit. Greens. Oh, let me see what greens. I want to take the greens over to the yellows a little bit, not too much. Over in the hue. Blue. I'm going to pump the blue up a little bit only because of those, I think those birch trees right there. It makes them pop a little bit. There's some blue in there. So we're going to make them pop a little bit. Kind of brighten the blues up a little bit too as well. And I'm not going to do too much here. I think that's pretty much it. I do want to saturate those reds just a little bit more. Again, not too much. And I don't want to brighten them up too much right there. Right about there, that looks good. Just like that. Okay. Now, pretty much here with this photo, I'm not going to do any color grading because it's already got enough warmth to it. I really don't want to add any blues or anything into the shadows. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go on over to Neo. I'm going to right click on my photo, go to edit in, click down, Luminar Neo. All right, as you can see now, we are in Luminar Neo. I have kind of like a love-hate relationship with Luminar Neo. I would be honest with you, I really haven't had any problems with Neo crashing. Luminar 4 definitely had a lot of crashing, and Luminar AI a little bit, but Neo, I think they're really starting to improve quite a bit here. So I usually don't mess with any presets. I usually tend to do everything myself, or maybe once in a blue moon, I kind of, if I got some spare time, I'll play around. But I'm just gonna go to edit. All right, and first thing I want to do here is I want to hit it with enhance AI. Now, if you were going to edit this photo as a raw in Neo, I probably wouldn't do this first. I would go into the develop module and I would do basically everything that we just did in Lightroom. Um, I would do that first, then I would come over to Accent AI. But otherwise, uh, I would prefer that you did all the other edits first, and then now all you got to do is kind of just tweak it a little bit. And, you can see how it's just popping everything. And I'm only doing like around 13 on the enhanced. So, and you obviously can see there's no sky in this photo. So, um, whatchamacallit, there's no sky there. So we can't do anything there. So we're just going to close that up. And then now I'm telling what I was talking about before, structure. Structure, you can do one or two things. You could do negative structure, and what it'll do is it'll kind of do kind of what the clarity does if you want negative clarity. Well, what I like to do is go to the positive side here, and I'm doing that for a reason because it's making everything pop. Okay, and it's definitely making those birch trees pop out, and the yellows pop, and the lighter color reds. Everything's popping out, and almost to the point where it's a little bit too much, but not quite. But what we're going to do in a little bit here is I'm going to go down to mystical, and mystical is going to kind of fix that a little bit. Landscape, I like to kind of go to a little bit of golden hour, not too much though, because again, we kind of took a little bit of that warmth out of there before. But what I like about golden hour is golden hour just doesn't put a blanket of yellow or orange across your photo. It places it where it thinks it needs it. And in this case, it kind of enhanced the yellowish orange leaves and a little bit on the whites. It kind of, if you notice, it took out some of the blues from those white birch trees. So definitely I like that a lot. Foliage, sometimes I mess with foliage, sometimes I don't. And again, it may or may not. It usually only touches the greens. However, you can go down here with the hue and you can tweak it to kind of um, work with whatever areas you want to do. But if I was going to do it with the greens, like, do I want to add more greens to this? And I probably don't. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it as is right there for this particular photo. And again, sometimes I'll play with it, sometimes I won't. So there you go, landscape. Vignette, we're going to come back to that. Oops, sorry guys. Hit the wrong button there. All right, here again, here we're going to go to 50. Oops, too much. Fit the screen. There we go. All right. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to go down to I did it again. Fit the screen. Sorry. We're going to go down here to Mystical. And I like to open this right up because it's got two parts to it. Over here, this is where it actually adds the Mystical. Now, what Mystical does is it's almost kind of like an Orton effect. But not 100%. So it's going to brighten up the brights and it's going to darken the darks and it's going to soften the photo a little bit. And when you have a lot of foliage, I love to soften the leaves and the plants a little bit. So, and if you can see the photo is getting a little bit darker, but we're going to fix that in a little bit. So you can see it was processing a little bit. And I'm going to open up the shadows a little bit more. We're going to go a little bit to the blue and the warmth. So we're going to cool it off a little bit. So if you go too warm, I mean, it's not too bad actually, but I don't want to go too much. So, yeah, you know what? Let's only go like a -3. So we'll cool it off a little bit. We're going to back the saturation off a little bit. That's why I love um, this mystical plugin or part of it. Because you can, I mean, there's so much you could do with it. You can see how it's softened. the leaves up a little bit and the foliage. So I'm going to go a little bit more. And you really got to be careful sometimes, because if you have like a sky photo, it can really cook up the sky a little too much. So you got to be really, really careful. And again, here with the foliage, I'm not as worried, because even if it did do anything in the photo, you really wouldn't be able to see it. So let's see, open up shadows a little bit more, right about there. Okay, and maybe a little bit smoother on the photo. All right, now we're going to go on over to glow. This is another one I like to play around with. Now I set it to Orton Effects Soft. Now this will brighten up your photo a little bit, and if you have like any light in your photo, like from the sun or whatever, be careful, because you could blow out your highlights. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit here. See how we're brightening it up a lot here? Now, we don't want to go too much, so we're going to lower the brightness a little bit here. Right about there. Okay. Warmth. Maybe warm it up a little bit. Now it's going to go cool it off a little bit. There we go. And let me see. Brightness. We're going to soften it a little bit. Make it a little bit brighter. Get those trees to pop right there. There, you can see how Luminar takes a little bit to render everything. So, but yeah, that looks really, really good. Now, that's pretty much where I ended. Sometimes I'll come down to color harmony or super contrast. Right now, let me try super contrast. Let me see if there's anything in here. We're going to try this here. See the highlights? We're going to do the highlights a little bit. Get this down here. Midtones. Let's just do this here. All right. So get that all there. We're going to start with the highlights first. Yeah, see how look at that center tree, how it really, really pops if I go like that. Now I'm going to take the highlights balance and kind of bring that back down a little bit, kind of tone it out. I like how what that did, it kind of popped that out a little bit. Now let's see what the midtones. Midtones I don't like to play with too much. See, again, look at it. See, it made it a little too, I mean, it's not too bad actually. So let's go here. And again, you got to wait for Luminar Neo to render. Yeah, it's just a little too much with the midtone. So we're going to leave that right as. Now the shadows, see, shadows are too bright, but you can darken them like that if you want to. See, that's too much. So I'm not going to do anything with the shadows right there. But that's looking really, really good. Now, as I've been editing this photo, I've been looking at it, and I'm looking at the composition. And obviously you notice there's a tree branch down here. And I could take it into Photoshop, and I could use content aware and possibly get rid of a lot of this stuff. Whether or not it would work or not, I probably should have done that sooner. But actually what I want to do is because this is almost mirroring, or it is actually mirroring everything, I want to try to get this in the center as possible. So what I want to do here is I want to move up over here to the crop. And let's take this to free. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring this up a little bit here. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. And plus, too, I think once this photo is printed, and if you blow it up a little bit, it'll definitely look much, much better. Let's bring this down just to here. I want this horizon, I guess, if you will, the center line, right where the shoreline is, pretty much right dead center there. Now you can see how everything is pretty much almost exact. Okay. I could probably bring this back down a little bit more, but not too much. I don't want to get that branch in there. There we go. Right there. That's perfect. All right. So now I can close up crop. Now, one little secret. I've been doing this for a while now, and I tell you, it makes your photos pop. And I really love how Luminar does this. The vignette. Now, again, I'm going to open this up all the way because there's a little secret that Luminar has here. So first we're going to put a little vignette. Let's go all the way down a little bit. So that's not too bad like that, but it's a little on the too much side. Normally I wouldn't go that much of a vignette. So we're just going to go right about there. The size, you could change the size a little bit too. So I'm going to make that a little bit smaller there. Then you could change the roundness if you wanted to. I do like to feather it, but this is the cool trick right here. You can inner light, so right here in the center, it makes the center pop, and then it keeps your attention all right in this part of the photo, right in the center. So I really love how it does it. You could do something similar like to that in Lightroom. You can use a radial filter, and what you would do is you would use two of them, one for the vignette, and then you would have to invert it for that one, and then you could use another radial filter for the center, and you don't have to invert it, and then you'll put it right in the center right there, and you could brighten it up. So you could do the same thing in Lightroom or Photoshop if you want to, but I just like this one right here. It's just so much easier to do. So now what we'll do is we will take that, hit apply, let Photoshop do its thing, and there you go. There's a photo. All right. Now I will just export that into. Usually, what I do is I have an export. I don't know if I'll show you real quick here. I have two different. So right here. So I actually have a couple of presets. I'm not going to go into how to do that in this video, but I have a social media one. So what that does, it gives me a JPEG. It's roughly about five megabytes, so it keeps it small enough to upload, but still keeps good quality. And then I have a print one that'll actually, I think it keeps it at around, I think I got it at around 30, around 30 megabytes. So it keeps it a lot bigger, so it keeps much more detail for blowing it up. Then I do actually have another one. It's a super low resolution. I was using this for, I sold a couple of my photos, and the company that wanted them, they wanted them for social media. So I gave them a lower quality. And honestly, when it's on social media, you really can't tell the difference. But I do that because I didn't want them to steal my photo and use it and blow it up. So I keep this at low enough resolution where it still looks good on social media. Okay. But at the same time, if they try to blow it up and print them and sell prints or whatever, it wouldn't look good. So it's a little trick if you ever get into selling your photos. But then what you do is you have batch import or export, and then you choose your folder. So you got to choose a folder for print. Then you got to choose another folder for where you want your social media one. So usually what I do here with the social media one, I send them up into iCloud. That way I can just post them to all my social media accounts from my phone, change the name and everything. I don't touch any of this stuff here. And then this one, I put them on my external hard drive. So I save a print version, and then the print version, obviously I use that if I sell prints. So when I upload them to my website, which is www.regalaphotography.com, where I sell a lot of my photos, these are uploaded there in the highest resolution. So if people were to choose a, say, 20 by 30 photo print size, it'll come out looking beautiful without being all blown out or noisy or anything like that. So anyway, I'm going to cancel out of that real quick. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed seeing how I edit my photos. I know everybody's got their own way of doing it, and you know, it's it's just something that that's no right or wrong. As long as you like the way the photo comes out, hey, more power to you. So anyway, hit that like button. Please subscribe, and then hit the little bell or ring the little bell there, and that way you'll know when my next video is coming out. So until next time, take care.